Matt De Boer, welcome to the Dylan Friends podcast, my friend. It's an honour, it's a pleasure, it's a privilege to have you on the show, finally.
It's good to be here, Jill. I sort of had to wait until the audience got big enough before I agreed to come on, which I think you've done now. Well done.
That's true.
Yeah, it's good to see your face.
That is so true, my friend, because we actually had this plan for a long time. Well, I'd had it planned. You were always sort of pushing back on it, which I'm sure we'll get a lot more of an idea in today why you were doing that and what it was about you. But in essence now and looking back, I'm so happy that we did actually take a lot of time to get this done and hear your story, because I think back then, if we had have done it, a lot of the show would have been about your football story and who you were tagging and these sort of maybe tidbit things that aren't as essential to, I think, the holistic view of who Matt De Boer is and who hopefully we can uncover today.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, talking about myself isn't my favourite topic, unlike yourself. But yeah, no, happy to. I'd much rather be talking about, growing the Dylan Friends media empire and, what you should be doing and maybe exploring NFTs and those sort of things. But maybe we can do that down the line as well.
Oh, mate, we'll be getting into it all today. The way you go about things is second to none. But chronologically, I want to go through your story today and really set the tone per se on your story, mate, because it is an incredible one. And without you knowing, I think you do know this, but I think you'll know this throughout the show a lot more today. You've had a massive impact on me and the way I've gone about my life post footy, just seeing how the way, you've done yours and what you've been through and how you've bounced back and just keep going. So I won't spoil it now, but let's go back to the start, my friend. Drafted in 2009 in the rookie draft, an absolute battler, a hustler from the start to the Fremantle Dockers. What's your memories of that?
Yeah, I guess 2008 I was played state football and had a reasonable carnival, was all Australian that year, and went to draft camp and did okay. I was top 10 in a few areas, repeat speed and the 3K time trial. And speaking to my manager at the time, is like, looks good, you're going to get drafted, etc. Draft day comes around, I've got my family and my friends sitting there next to me. They're going through the numbers and not being called out. I was like, okay, maybe I'll be the Tom Brady. And then sure enough, not called at all. So it was a pretty devastating day, to be honest. And it was quite embarrassing. And I just remember thinking, I can go one or two ways here. I can, the rookie drafts next week and keep my head up and just prepare for that and go out for a run and have a kick and be ready for that. Or I can sort of go out with my mates and just decided to, strap in for the next week and was fortunate enough to get rookie listed. But I didn't watch that one with my family and friends. I just said, oh no, we'll just let that one go. And had a missed phone call on the day and checked my voicemail, and it was Matthew Pavlich here, just welcoming you to the club. And I thought, oh shit, better call that guy back. And then was just very fortunate to join the Dockers and on the rookie list as such. You had to get sort of elevated before you're eligible to play. So just went in and tried to, improve on my areas of deficiency and grow from there. It's
a super story, man, and one that I don't want to just breathe over too lightly, because it's at such a young age as well. I know what it's like when you trying to get picked up and even to have a draft party, not to harp on that, but what was a setback at that stage? Like, that can really break you, I think, and take a massive hit of confidence there. But to sort of back yourself in again and just go, you know what, no, next week, let's go again.
Yeah, it was one of those ones that, at the time I knew I had some deficiencies to work on and still do. Namely for me, it was sort of working on my kicking and distribution by foot. And so as soon as I got drafted, that was the priority, and good to have. I was lucky enough to have some good coaches and mentors there that, how are we going to improve upon this? It wasn't just, I want to become a great kick. It was, let's break this down. And for me, it was, I used to collapse on my stance leg. My ball drop was horrendously high, and then just decision making within that. So just identified sort of three key areas, and I've tried to use that in other models going forward. But identify three key areas, and then have some tangible things associated with that to really improve upon. So for me, it was getting with the biomechanic, weekly, and just really analysing my technique with him, Damien Shannon. Shout out to him. The great man's probably a fan, no doubt. And then doing extras after training, always making sure I was doing that. And then reviewing the footage as well for decision making. So identifying those sort of three key areas and systematically trying to go about improving upon them. I'm not perfect, still just try and play within my limits, but just as an area of that I need to work on and just try to go about doing so.
This level of like self-awareness that you've had at such a young age, and it's going to be prevalent throughout the whole show because it's about who you are and it's how you do your thing. But was it something that you've always found that's been a part of you? Because I look back to when I first got drafted, and I was, a father, son. I've told this story a million times, but just rocked up to the club, thought that I, deserved to play 300 games, thought it was all going to happen. Didn't realise I actually had to put into hard work. But I suppose you, on the other hand, you've rocked up, you're a rookie, you know the things you're already deficient in, you're already proactive in trying to fix them. Is it something that's been prevalent throughout your whole life, or was there a time where, how did you learn these things is probably where I'm trying to get to?
Yeah, it's a good question, and probably not something I've sort of reflected on where it sort of came from. I guess, growing up, I had 3 brothers, no sisters, so poor mum. But yeah, just like super competitive environment. And my dad was, didn't essentially push me in sport, but just helped facilitate everything. And he always said, look, make sure you look at someone in the eyes when they're talking to you, and you never know what you might get from them. So I was sort of always just trying to take in information from wherever I could. And he was always giving me feedback on things that I needed to work on. And so it just became a part of, I guess, my DNA in being hardworking, but getting that feedback and sort of just going to work there. And then I guess, in playing state footy, I was playing alongside, the Dan Riches, Nick Nadanuis of the world, super players who had touted and are going to be drafted as soon as they were eligible. I was sort of always just trying to make sure I worked hard and trying to keep up with these guys. So yeah, I think it was just in my DNA and forms a bit of your identity as well.
So you get there in 2009, you're on the rookie list, you're obviously hustling around trying to get a game. You sort of cement yourself into the team around that time. You're playing the 2013 grand final, playing some really good, consistent footy. What was that like, I suppose, in that time with Fremantle? You're absolutely humming there. You've got Ross Lyon as your coach, who's this, unforeseen force that everyone's so scared of. What was it like playing for Fremantle at that stage?
Yeah, it was a super experience. Debuted under Mark Harvey, and always grateful for the opportunity that he gave me. And then had Ross Lyon, a few years later, and I think it's interesting. Like, people often bring it up how I was, delisted essentially, by Fremantle ultimately at the end of 2016. And am I bitter about that? And it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I'd put Ross Lyon in my sort of top 5 most influential people in my career, on and off field. Just everything that he would impart upon myself and the playing group around you can't quarantine excellence and football IQ and how to set standards, is really something that has formed, I guess, who I am and what I still continue to do today. And Fremantle's DNA at the time was like we were this defensive sort of juggernaut. So I picked up a lot of my key, I guess, football IQ from around that and the game plan there, and I could still quote the Fremantle game plan from back in the day. But yeah, we just knew going into the games that was our identity, and we'd be able to crush teams. We might not be kicking the biggest score, but we knew if everyone played their role within that we'd be able to be competitive, and more often than not we were winning games.
Hey, I really like what you said there about Ross and your experience with Fremantle and leaving there and being bitter, and that's what people assume. Like, I find it's quite similar for myself as well. Like, when I left Carlton, Brennan Bolton, like he was a guy that obviously ended up delisting me and taking my career away from me. But I actually look back at him now being like, fuck, this bloke taught me like so much shit. Not so much football sort of things that correlated, but it was more the off-field things that I really took away from it. What's Ross Lyon like, man? Like, we've heard a lot of the sprays and sometimes we have a bit of a laugh about him, but what were some of those things that you've taken back since then? Is it like the excellence? I've heard stories from yourself and Alex Silvani, Tommy Sheridan, Mick Barlow about how like high performance his programs, actually were. It's like notebooks in meetings, like punctuality, all these things. Like, what was it like playing under him?
Yeah, it was genuinely an experience. He sort of come in and laid the law down, I guess, and what his expectations were, and then just like we'd show footage of the game plan and things that we want to do, and then he'd be like, righto, someone repeat that back to me. What are our key focuses? And to begin with, all the boys were a bit it'd stutter or that wouldn't quite get it right. Sure enough, day 2, everyone's got notebooks. Everyone's writing down the key points from the meeting, testing each other, heading into meetings, knowing that we'd inevitably get asked, and just making sure that we're all on the same page there. But then he was really big on the players succeeding off field as well, and he made it mandatory at a time to you weren't eligible for selection unless you were engaged in something meaningful off field. So that sharpened a few of the boys up, and had to be doing a trade or uni degree or short course in something. So he really said, I want my players to be successful on and off field, and there's the balance there. That you can't quarantine excellence was his mantra, knowing that if you're going to be good in one area, you're going to be good in the other. So he thought that would definitely correlate across, and he goes, I want to be able to pick up the newspaper and read about my players being great off field down the line. So that was quite profound for as competitive as he is game day, and those are some of the funnier moments as well, the sprays and those sort of things, but just how well rounded he was and wanted the best for his players.
Well, you look at it now, and I think even just thinking about everything you're saying, like yourself, Zach Dawson, Alex Silvani, Mick Barlow, you might be able to throw Tommy Sheridan in there somewhat, but all have left footy or still in footy with really stringent and like plans outside of life now. Like it does seem to have an effect on players that have left the game. Obviously, that can be the messaging from the footy club, but it also has to be well driven, during the players themselves. Yeah,
absolutely, and it got to that point. But he'd always, obviously we review football, majority of the time, but then he'd come in with just some psychological principles as well around effort and energy, and he'd talk us through back in the Paleolithic times, you have to conserve your energy. You never knew when you were going to get your next meal, or you never knew if you had to run away from a predator. But like, where's Ross going with this? And obviously nowadays you've got Uber Eats around the corner and there's no predators as such, but people are still inherently lazy because of that time. So he'd always be trying to push you and challenge you on this, and knowing that you've got more to give than you think, and tap into that, and just continually pushing boys. So he was sort of well read, had his own mentors as well, and would bring in those types of learnings for everyone.
What are some of the other ones? Because I know that there's a big one. I can't fully remember the story, but it was like a really big build up against the Cats down at Skilled Stadium, and there was some way that he really swung that in the percentage of Fremantle to have the motivation and the belief that they could win that. So setting the precedence for that. What was it? Is that in 2013 when you were travelling across from WA all the way over to Geelong? Obviously going to have not many fans in the stand, but somehow you got up and won this game.
Yeah, so originally the game was scheduled to be at the MCG, and then for whatever reason, AFL politics, etc., got moved to Geelong Stadium. So automatically there was us versus them type mentality on steroids as well. That AFL was trying to sort of give them every advantage they could down there. So there was that, but then also we knew that the crowd would be heavily Geelong focused. So his one of his key learnings throughout my time there was reframing, and how to reframe experiences that you had. So in the specific example of Geelong game, it was the crowd's going to be noisy, like they're going to be cheering at absolutely everything. So all week it was talking about what do we do when they cheer, and it became you focus on your role and you focus on the next moment. So rather than hearing this intimidating cheer, it was like a trigger for the whole playing group to focus on the next moment, focus on our role, and ultimately we came away with the win.
It's huge, man, absolutely huge. It's something that I think you probably don't understand the power of that until you play for a club that doesn't have as many supporters. Like when we're at the Giants, and obviously you're still there doing incredible things, but you do really realise how much a crowd does come into the factor. So to bring that awareness and to have that and be able to flip the script almost is pretty brilliant. Mate, 2016, as I would know how this happens, but you sort of fall out of favour here in the Fremantle lineup. What happens there? Is it just a change of guard? Is it sort of blooding some youth?
Yeah, that's how it sort of happened. I guess end of 2015, Fremantle finished top of the ladder. We were quite dominant. I played pretty much every game that year. 2016 comes around, we started losing a couple games. And, I was 26 at the time, didn't feel that old, but it felt like we made a quick shift to playing the youth. And, so I was like, all right, down to State League we go, and was playing midfield there, and was having a reasonable year there, and just couldn't get back into the ones. And would talk to Ross, would try and get feedback, would see where I'm at, and ultimately that was the direction that they were going, and they were pretty unashamed about it. So the writing on the wall was there for me, knowing that at the end of the year I'd likely be delisted, and that was a source of, I guess, frustration throughout the year. And I'm not going to lie, I had my down moments, but what was a key takeaway was I was able to play State League football. Coming back to your gratitude piece, but ultimately with some of my better friends and teammates, Tendai Mzungu, Alex Silvani, Zach Clark, just to name a few, and we had a really dominant side that qualified for State League because of Ross dropping some of those players throughout the year, and sure enough, come Waffle finals, we finished fifth. the mighty Peel Thunder, and then we won every game right through to the grand finals. So it's one of my sort of key takeaways. And during the year, I felt like I could have dropped my bundle along with some of the other players, but it was like, no, let's absolutely dominate this. And now it's one of my greatest memories is the 2016 Waffle Grand Final.
Mate, break that down for me though, because I think in experience, like I've been there, I've been out of favour in a team. So many people have been like this, not even in football, in the workplace, in life, and it's so easy to just like go, fuck this is not going my way. Like I'm just going to go down here. Why me? Poor me. Well, it's a trap that I've fallen in anyway many a times. What did you come back to in those times? I know you said like about the enjoyment, but I don't believe it's as easy as that. There's got to be something else like intrinsically motivating you to get through that period, because I know from my point of view when I was there, man, it was honestly, it was all about me. I somehow just couldn't break out of the trap of not, thinking it was something personal towards myself.
Yeah, I mean, reflecting on it now, it's easy to sort of think about it and control the narrative as such. But I guess coming back to it, for me, it was just around like identity and who do you want to be known as and what do you want people to say about you. I've sort of been motivated throughout my whole career of one, fear of failure, but two, aspirational thinking as well. And at the time, I was like, well, I don't want to be known as the guy that spat the dummy and didn't give effort. Like I've built my brand and my identity around that guy that gives maximum effort. So let's keep being that guy. And I saw a real opportunity to lead and these younger guys, and really got enjoyment out of that. Definitely had my moments of frustration. Don't get me wrong. Would talk to Alex Silvani, Tendai Mzungu about it. You have these confidants and these close mates that you can always do, and my mates outside of football as well. But ultimately came back to my purpose, which is all around trying to make my family proud. Really defining that. What would they want me to do there? It'd be inconsistent with my brand and my purpose to not give maximum effort. Therefore, I do. Also around elements of mastery, just trying to be the best I can for as long as I can, and then providing for my family as well. So just trying to ultimately put my best foot forward at all occasions to be consistent with my purpose.
Incredible answer. You nailed that. I love that. That's true Matty De Boer style. The one thing that really stuck out there that is like I think learned a lot about the way that you'll go about things, and I'll probably say that 15 times today, is when you said it's how other people view you, and what would someone say about you? Like what would you want someone to say about you if they met you the first time? And I think that was something that when I asked my question to that of myself at some stages, I was like, fuck, I probably wouldn't like the answer of what someone would say about me. And I think that's something in sport and in work where you can really answer the question yourself, is like, what would a colleague say about me? What would my teammates say about me? If they were picking a team, where would they be picking me? And if you can like really answer that, like you have in that scenario, that's when it's a real credit to yourself. But I think even more powerful is if you do answer that question and it's not the answer you want, like, can you act on it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, in football, we call it the football tombstone at times. What would you want to be written on there? And, once again, it comes back to your effort and your actions from there. But yeah, it is, it's not all smooth sailing through that journey. But yeah, coming back to that, that purpose, I think for everyone's key. And I'm, would love to make this somewhat educational as well. How many of your listeners have actually sat down and really tried to define that as well? And I'd challenge you to do that. Might take 5-10 minutes and something you can iterate over time. But even to the point where, as a kid, my dad's friends would always tell me, gee, your dad was a tough player, and football and in baseball, I think he got rubbed out for 10 weeks for knocking a few people out, which he's not super proud of, but it happened. It's where my white line fever comes from. But in thinking that, gee, I want to make my dad proud. If he's a tough player, I want to be a tough player, and I want my friends to tell my kids that. So once you sit down and actually think about it and define it, it really helps you propel your next action.
Hey, on that as well, because I have done something similar to that. It's still something that I'm trying to work out for me, but is it as simple as like you can actually do those tests? Like you can do the purpose quiz where like, you can basically pick 10 words that define you, and then you go, okay, now pick 7 of those 10, now pick 5 of those 10, now pick 3 of those 10, and then you'll sort of find a niche of what those words might be.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. That's not how I sort of did it, but definitely, I'm sure there's tools and things online these days for that. So definitely look into it. I guess just always challenge those extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. So the extrinsic ones around, money and fame, and these things can get you jumping out of bed in the mornings for sure. But the ones that are, more, I guess, purposeful and can, propel you, when you might be at your lowest point, around those intrinsic motivators. So elements of mastery, purpose and autonomy and family and these ones that are more intrinsically, motivating. They're the ones that can really take you to heights that you probably didn't think, to begin with, that would be possible.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, Matthew, because I think for me, if I just thinking about this personally and we're just having a conversation now, I'm learning a lot today. But intrinsically, I think you were saying about how you can be motivated by external factors. So, like whether that be people listening to the podcast or enjoying it, how many people listen to it, how much sponsorships can I get, all these sort of things, which is definitely a trap that I didn't want to get stuck into because it was something that happens when you play football. But now that I've noticed that again, it comes back to the exact thing. It's like, fuck, I don't want to do that show. I want to do one that I'm actually passionate about. I want to do episodes that people are actually going to enjoy because, yeah, it's just, I think it's something that you can never fully master all the time. It's like something you just have to keep checking back in with yourself. And I've found that anyway for me. It's something that I literally will be doing for like 6 months, totally forget about it for another 6, and then go, fuck, I've got to come back to that and realise what I'm actually doing.
Yeah, I think it comes back to your locus of control, and people talk about it. Trust the process, control the controllables, and that's really key. So like some of those results we were talking about, like fame and money and sponsorships, like that's going to be the outcome of you really nailing a great product. And for you, that's it's just been evident. You've defined what's key to you. You found your product market fit, and you're really doubling down on that and creating a really key audience from that. So within that is like, purpose, you and your mantra around, be yourself, everyone else is taken, you're really building that community, autonomy. You can do this whenever you want. It's great from, anywhere in the world. I touched on purpose and mastery, a chance to be great at something. Like you could be one of the greatest podcasters ever. That's a genuine, possibility for that. So that's your intrinsic motivators there. And then the extrinsic ones would be, all the fame and bar cards you'll get as a result, mate.
I'm pretty motivated. I want to run through a brick wall. Mate, where's the head at the end of 2016? You've just won the flag with Peel Thunder. You're getting delisted from Fremantle. Sorry to tell you this, but you did. Where's the head at? What was the next movements? Was there ever a lifeline available? How did it all sort of play out from there?
Yeah, so heading into the meeting with Ross and the GM at the time, like as I said, the writing was on the wall, but I actually recorded the content on my phone. I thought this could be interesting at some point down the line. Stuck it in my pocket. No one knows that, but and I had to. It was a weird sort of meeting from memory, and I don't know if I was a little bit rattled or not, but I sort of had to clarify. Like, so just to be clear, am I delisted? And oh yeah, you're definitely done. I was like, oh, okay. Sweet.
Oh my God, you've got to show us this content. We've got to play this in the show.
I'll have to find it. I'll have to try and find it. So that was good. Shook the hands. Like, I was actually very proud of my time there. Still am, and really proud of the relationships and everything I've got there. So left on really good terms. And then I had a trip to Japan planned, mate, with a few of the boys. So that was definitely still on the radar. One of the better things about being an AFL player at times is the defined leave that you have. So had that locked in. And I still thought I had plenty of footy left in me. I performed strongly in the state league competition. Sort of said to the manager, get to work and see what's out there for me. But I was putting my resume together. Like, I'd graduated that year at University of Western Australia. So had my uni degree done at least and was sort of moving forward there. And then I went to Vietnam with my partner as well. And the anxiety was rising a little bit. Still hadn't no sort of offers or interest. And then sure enough, a little bit later, halfway through my trip in Vietnam, I believe there was 2 offers, and one of them was the Giants. And the message was, fly back straight away. Leon wants to meet you. And I just remember looking at my partner, now fiance. I was like, this has been her holiday all year, so we'll just stick it out. If they're interested, they'll be interested when we get back. So we got back, and then I flew over. Met Leon and had a really good chat, and did the medical and passed that just. And then in chatting to Leon, he was, asking me all these questions and said, if you did come in, you'd be the 27th, 28th player on the list. How does that sit? And I just said, give me the opportunity and watch me crack into the 22 from there. So, he and Leon, just to touch on him, it's just been absolutely profound, for me personally, and obviously for my footy career, just the empowerment and the work rate and everything he puts into the players, but also the Giants organisation as a whole is really profound and has been really inspiring for me. And I've learnt so much from him on how he goes about that, and will be forever grateful for the second opportunity, because not everyone gets them. But as you'd know, mate, no one works harder than Leon. No,
I couldn't agree more, mate. And I literally had a very similar chat to Leon, and I actually said the same thing. but it just didn't plan out that way, unfortunately. But no, mate, it's a credit to yourself because, as I said, I don't doubt that for a second. When you say that, and I think even he would know that, like you're always gonna end up in the team. You go from a delisted free agent picked up, and a year later in the leadership group of the Giants.
Yeah, it was an interesting year. I've got there, trying to settle in, and the Giants organisation's great. I'm sure you've touched on it over your time, but in day 2, Phil Davis is. I'm staying at his house, meeting all the boys. Then he's helping me move my fridge into my house a bit later on, and just everyone's gone there to play football. Essentially, there's only a small few that are actually from Sydney, so everyone becomes each other's sort of friends and family, and from social functions to club functions, you become really tight knit with everyone, and just that genuine care and loves there, and like we've become a real family club as a result, and I think that will propel the Giants for a long time to come.
Mate, what did you think of that? Just back on that, by the way, with Leon and the Giants, because it is a special place, and I sort of have to be careful of what I say now because I get called a Giant lover, and not denying the fact that I am, but it is a really special culture and place up there. What did you think of how that was sort of depicted in the Amazon series? Because I had so many people coming up to me just saying, gee whiz, Leon looks like an absolute flog. What's happened here? And I was like, mate, it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, they're actually the most switched on units ever. But it obviously the cameras are there. Who knows what can get, sort of shown throughout it. We all watch maths and we see they say the same thing.
Yeah, no, I've got to say I was disappointed with the edit, and I got to be careful. Obviously, I thought as a whole the documentary and the process was fantastic, great insight for everyone involved. But I guess it is an edit, and it is a narrative, and it is a story, and they're trying to build it up in certain ways. So there was great moments of Cogs and Leon, and everyone saw those ones as well. I just feel like there was some epic moments that were missed out. They were there essentially 24/7 for the whole year. Cogs, for example, I remember one captain's run meeting. He's gone around, he's stood up in front of everyone, and he's gone through every single individual player and told them what he loves about them and how great they are. And I just remember seeing the rise in everyone, and I was like, oh, that'll definitely be in the doco. This would be sick. And it wasn't shown. And I feel like obviously they've only got so many minutes and so long that they can show. But yeah, once again, like Leon, one of the hardest working guys, meets with every single player every week and touches base on footy and gives them some feedback, but then also says, how's Rach going? How's your parents going? When's the last time you bought Rach flowers and these sort of things as well. So just that holistic care. I just feel like it wasn't depicted, and once again, it's tough to fit a whole narrative in. But yeah, it just felt like it could have been a bit more well-rounded or balanced.
It is hard. No, that's a great comment. Very very stoic of you, I think, if that even fits in there. But I couldn't agree more. I think that the Giants are a fantastic club, but there's always going to be bits that they see and don't see. As I said, I actually really enjoyed the doco as well. I thought it was unbelievable, but it's just unfortunate the year panned out how it did. Hey, the role you ended up sort of playing at the Giants, on and off, I suppose, is in the midfield and looking after some players, taking on the game's best, really, going head-to-head with some of the best players in the game. Was that something that was always foreign to you? I know you did a little bit about this at Freo as well. How did you find this when you were sort of picked upon to do it at the Giants too?
Yeah, I've done a little bit here and there at Fremantle, and then when I was playing State League, I got tagged a little bit as well, and bloody annoying, those blokes, mate. And then, 17, 18, I was playing higher forward role, sort of up and go, on the wing, pinch hitting and these sort of things. And Giants midfield's elite. It's like, how am I going to crack into that despite, growing up as a midfielder? And I remember watching Hutchings tag side bottom in the grand final and did a great job. And I just remember telling Lenny Hayes, the midfield coach, if you ever want someone to be, a tagger, I'm happy to, put my hand up and give it a go. And then, unfortunately, Callum Ward hurt his knee. So started 2019, I was given the job in a practice game. I was like, go tag Steve Canelio Cogs and see how you go. I like to think we broke even. And and then later next week we were playing Essendon, and we're like, oh well, let's go give this tagging thing a go. And yeah, did a reasonable job, and it just sort of stuck throughout the whole year, and quickly became the villain, and plenty of social media hate ensued. But it was all part of it, and if it allowed my teammates to get off the chain, which inevitably they did because they're all weapons, then I was happy to fulfil that role.
Oh mate, I think that sums you up completely. Like every single player that I've spoken to, without a doubt, every single player said he's one of my favourite players that I've ever played with, the best teammate that you can go for. And for you to sort of put your hand up and just take that selfless role, I know it's depicted a lot in the media as a bad thing, but internally you can't underrate that and how much your teammates love it. And as we said earlier, it's like, what would someone say about you? And the people that are closest to you only have the best things to say. So you've done it well there, mate, and won the respect of everyone more than I can, or more than anyone could ever really wish, to be honest. What kind of mentality in that though, Dutch, do you actually have to become an elite tagger? Like what goes into that every day? Like I can imagine there's an enormous amount of work, learning players' games, and even like the anxiety that would give me of just knowing that I've got to tag someone a whole game. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, so if you break it down, it's just sort of attention to detail and relentless to task. So yeah, for me, it was, I'd get with Lenny Hayes and would like analyse at least sort of 2 games of the most recent games of the player and sort of break down what their modus operandi is and what they tend to do at stoppages, at kick-ins, ball ups, etc., and just see if there's any sort of patterns there that we can potentially break down. So analysing that, if they've been tagged before, we'll review that game as well, and then come back to my own game and review my most recent game, how I could have improved there, both defensively and offensively at the right time, trying to join in and play that role as well. And then, I guess just going to games, sort of backing yourself. It's easy to have this narrative in your head, oh no, what happens if this happens? And it's like, no, once again, come back to what's in my control, and that can be my body work, it can be my running patterns, it can be, bookending with my teammates, it can be all these sort of things that give me my best chance of success. Doesn't guarantee it, but give me my best chance, I guess, at fulfilling the role and ultimately winning the game.
Who are some of the hardest ones you've played on, mate? There's been a lot there. Who are some of the ones that you've really had to put in the work to get done?
Stephen Cornelio at training. That's where the list ends. No, mate, they're all hard to have all either got elite speed, elite strength, elite IQ. So yeah, every game's tough. Lucky to have great teammates around me. But yeah, to name some names, like obviously Dusty Martin, Pat Dangerfield, Nat Fife, like these types are just, they've got everything, and the teammates look after them as well. So it's always a good challenge, and I just try and just do my best, mate.
Hey, are you happy? I don't know if you're having a book series coming out soon, but I'm sure this would be in it. The 2019 Granny against the Tigers that we played in obviously went down, but are you sort of happy to talk about the condition that you went into that game in? I think I've alluded to something in the podcast before, but always said it's Matty De Boer's story to tell. For me, it sort of stands out as something I was just, in that time, just had to pinch myself going, fucking hell, this bloke is off his head.
Let's do it. I guess in the prelim final against Collingwood, in the third quarter, I was on Scott Pendlebury, and it was obviously a tight game. I've gone to make a tackle and landed on my knee awkwardly, and let's just say I stretched my medial ligament, my MCL, and quickly heard a pop and got off the ground as sort of soon as I could. And then they were sort of testing it, and I said, it's a bit loose, and I just told him to effing strap it up and get me back out there. Pretty hated it at the time. So they did that, and they strapped it as tight as they could and got out there and was able to sort of fulfill the role, and we got the win, luckily, after some Shane Mumford candy on the goal line. And then, it was obviously like we've won the game, and I was absolutely ecstatic, and then all of a sudden, it just crept in that, the knee feels a little bit loose here. So we'll see how we go. And then, so I obviously just stretched it. So all week I was off legs, and the decision was to play or not to play. Obviously we know the result, and didn't work out the way that we wanted. But passed the sort of medical and had to do some team training all there. But it wasn't, was a semi loose, and then I just had to strap it up and re-strap it at halftime as well to try and get through.
I love it, but I think that, I don't know if you remember this. I don't think anyone does remember this, because I definitely shouldn't have been in the room at the time that these discussions are going. I think I just done my 14th calf and was just chilling out, maybe getting a rub, and you've walked in with the doctor. Again, this is your story to tell, so I hope that this is okay. But I just remember just sitting there, and I was like, should I leave this situation? I'm pretty sure I shouldn't be here. Didn't want to sort of move, but I just remember the doctor being like, mate, this is your knee. Like, you've probably got a 30% chance of actually doing your ACL if you play with this.
Yeah, he said there was an increased risk, and The chance that eternal success was sort of, was more appealing to me at the time. But I was really transparent with the doctors, and because it can be selfish to play when you're not right. Like, let's be clear about that. So
Yeah, definitely.
I did chat with the coaches, did chat with the medical staff, and said, "I'll 100% play if you're happy, with the condition that I'm going in on." And as we know, the result, it didn't make a difference. But at the time, I was willing to take that risk for that chance. Once again, coming back to my purpose, was I might have forgot to touch on it earlier, is like to win a grand final, and to be part of eternal success with my teammates who I love coming to work with each day. And there's no better feeling than after a win, sitting there with them. So the chance that at winning that, ultimately outweighed any sort of risk associated with doing my ACL.
It was pretty crazy that week as well. And again, the main goal is to win a premiership, and not to say that Richmond didn't have any players that were injured, because by the time of that, that season ends, every single bloke has got a niggle that they're carrying. But I just remember going, fuck, like, you look at blokes like Lockie Whitfield, who was one of the toughest, if not the toughest blokes I've ever seen really play the game for his size. Not even for his size, to be honest, just pound for pound, he is like the toughest bloke I've probably seen. And to even sort of get up and do what he did is a feat in itself as well.
No, he's an absolute maniac. You talk about that, pound for pound. Like he's just absolutely fearless as well, factoring in his body. And actually, speaking of pound for pound, I was at the club this morning and I saw the record board, and I was just having a look. And then, sure enough, on the bench press relativity, Dylan Buckley still in the top 10. You're actually in the top 10 for that, and top 10 for most shit talked as well, mate. So well done. That lives on.
I'd be in the top. I don't think anyone could compare to the most shit talked. Maybe only Zach Sproul, that would be the only one. But I do remember the bench press, and Alex, the weights coach, the Giants weights coach, I just feel like he would absolutely hate seeing my name at the top there every single time, because there's nothing more he hated than me just rocking up 10 minutes late to weights most weeks.
We might reset it soon. I think rounding out that podium on the shit talk would be Tommy Sheridan as well, mate.
Oh, geez, let's not go there. Hey, Matty, elite habits. It's something that is obviously prevalent in not just footy, but in your life. How important is habits to you, and how do you stay on top of them? Because I suppose this is like an educational piece for myself and anyone else out there listening. If someone said to you, sorry, how can I improve my habits? What would you say?
Yeah, I guess, some people are familiar with the term aggregate of marginal gains, which is essentially saying, like, let's not get 10% better, at one thing, because that's in reality really hard. But let's get better, like 1% better at 100 different things. And that, like, the cumulative advantage together will make you a better person and a better player. So, like in sport, it's like, how can you incrementally improve your diet? Is it with your hydration? Is it by getting a mentor? Is it by reading more books? Is it listening to more podcasts? And then like with analyzing, breaking everything down, like Ross would often talk about, every decision you make is either taking you close to where you want to go or taking you further away. So for me, being an elite footballer, that's the result. What are all the actions in there to form that? So, it becomes quite binary quite quickly. It's like, yeah, I enjoy watching Netflix and that's good. At times you do need to chill out, but if you're binge watching till past midnight, you're not getting your sleep. And, refer back to your sleep interview you did around that and just how important that is. So ice baths, yes, no. Obviously, yes, at the post-game and diet, should I eat that piece of chocolate or whatever? It's like, is it taking me closer or taking me further away to where I want to go? So I guess, to answer your question, it's like really defining where you want to go and all the actions in between that will take you there. So for sport, it's obviously diet, preparation, skills, mental aptitude, and then breaking those down further. How can I improve upon them? And I've touched on getting resources is key. Like, we're so fortunate these days in the information age that, you can listen to podcasts, books, you can LinkedIn, you can get a mentor really quickly. And just getting feedback from people that have been there, done that, and try and improve your processes on the way to, hopefully fulfilling your goals.
Yeah, mate, I couldn't agree more. It's something that, again, it sounds easy in theory, but I suppose it's all about that repetition and just being consistent with it. Like, I think the best thing that I've probably learnt with this sort of stuff is you're not going to get it straight away, and you might not even really get it consistent all the time, but the more you can keep thinking about it, the better you'll be. So if you might do it one like, for example, whatever your skill that you're trying to be, it might be an ice bath, remembering to do it once, the more you start remembering it, the more you'll keep doing it, the more you keep doing it, the more it'll become a habit. So I think even just like to start, it's just like identifying what it is that you need to do. The more that it's in your front of your mind, then the more you're going to keep doing it.
I'm really fortunate to have, mentors, across my journey, and, I'll touch on a couple of them and see if you can guess who they are. So, player A, fought his way onto a list, is, regarded as one of the hardest working players that there is, worked on all these areas of, deficiency, was in leadership group, in his third year, continued to work on everything, played finals 75% of the time, was a best clubman award winner, joined a new club on the rise, was in the leadership group there in his second year, and then ultimately became one of the sort of most consistent performers and a loved teammate. So there's that guy. Another one of my mentors is player B, and player B was rookie listed, undrafted, bit of a scrapper, really fortunate to get a game at all through someone else's injury, sort of hung around, ultimately got delisted by a club, joined another club, as a depth player, hung around for a bit longer, and, never really achieved a hell of a lot, so there's two mentors there. Do you know who they are?
Well, I was going to say Alex Silvani sounds like the first one.
Nah, so they're actually both me. And I guess,
I was going to say the second one sounds like you, but I was like, okay, that's very good. I really like that.
Yeah, so like they're both me. And I guess the lesson there is it's all about who you choose to be, and I choose to be player A. And then that really helps serve me and fulfills my, propels my next steps there. So in Elite Habits, when you're forming it, how do you see yourself? And I don't say that to be arrogant at all. Like, I hope your listeners don't interpret it that way. I really just challenge them to think about what's your internal narrative, and is that propelling you towards where you want to go? Because Elite Habits, like I touched on before, like we're inherently lazy. You need to have the purpose and the motivation to do so, but it becomes down to what's your identity, like I've touched on, and what's your self-narrative, so that it serves you to fulfill your next step, because that'll take you ultimately to where you want to go.
Man, I've just had a mind-blown moment there. You've really opened something up for me. That was unbelievable the way you did that. That's so good.
So be happy.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely be using that. No, well, I was thinking straight. I was like, this sounds like it's you, but I was like, well, it's not going to be you, so it might be Alex Silvani. And then the second one, I was like, fuck, is that like me? Maybe that's just, I don't think that's a good thing. No, that's incredible, mate. So it's sort of like you're giving yourself, just do that because I want to do it for myself. You're like sort of saying that this is the best case for myself if I take all the opportunities and have Elite Habits and make the most of my time, versus what I'll achieve if I don't act on what I could possibly achieve.
Yeah, we touched on it before, like what do you want people to say about you? And that's like important and can be, a good reflection piece. But ultimately, you need to choose who you want to be and what your narrative is of yourself, because what's going to serve you? Is it better for me to think that I'm a scrapper and that's going to motivate me to get better? Or is it better to define myself as one of the hardest working players who, is a consistent performer? And, if I choose that I'm player A consistently and I tell myself over and over again. Actually, it reminds me of, and you might not remember this, but we were doing a running session in the off season, I think, and you mentioned how you'd been reading a great book recently, and you'll have to fill us in what book it was. But one of the key lessons was you have to be your own best friend. I was like, okay, explain that to me. And it was saying, well, how do you treat your best friend when they're down or when they're going well? And it's like, you're fully supportive. You get around them, you help them, understand their next moments. And I was like, that's a great point. And it just feeds into this internal narrative that people have, and just make sure that you're always choosing player A, because that's going to help. Everyone's got their own player A, so everyone needs to choose that because it'll help them take them to where they want to go.
Love it, mate. Absolutely love it. That internal narrative, it's something that I'm so passionate about. And I do really think that it even if it doesn't change the external things of your life, just like mentally you feel so much better about yourself, especially of where you are, because you're just like, fuck, I'm actually killing it. How good's this? Talking of ideologies, I know it's something that we could probably harp on about all day. There's a really cool one that you actually told me about, being the Flea Analogy. You happy to sort of open up on that one, because I feel like that had a massive sort of impact on me too.
Yeah, I think it's well documented. But yeah, for everyone listening, there's an experiment done with fleas, and I'll get it wrong slightly, but they can jump extremely high, like maybe not quite your vertical leap deal, but quite high, more so than mine. So call it a meter, and they can jump that high. And then the experiment was they put him inside this box, call it 30 centimeters, and the flea jumps up, hits its head, jumps up, hits its head, and says, well, gee, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then what's interesting is when you take the lid off, and knowing that they can jump a meter in the air, they can't get to that height anymore. They've conditioned themselves through pain, through fear, to not jump that high. So it's a really good reminder that we as people put these limits on ourselves all the time, be it energy, be it fear of failure, be it any sort of external circumstances within our lives, that we put these these lids on ourselves. So I always talk about really defining what's possible in your life, both professionally, on-field, off-field, relationships, etc. Setting no limits, and just continually, knowing that you can jump as high as you want to jump, essentially.
I love that, Matty. It's such a good one. I actually did think I heard that a long time ago, like when I was at school and had no idea what it meant. But it's funny how things like become relevant again when you're in the situation of like needing to hear it. You can only, you can be told things a million times, but until it clicks with you and you're ready to take it on board, that's definitely something that I remember you sort of telling me at that stage. Hey, on this as well, what do you think personally for yourself you need to do to be at your best in not just sport, because I know that's only one facet of your life and we'll get into the next facet later, but in business and in life, when are you at your best? Like, are you just consistent in your recovery, what you put in your body, your mindfulness? What is it?
Yeah, I think, coming back to what you can control again, like for me, it's like, well, what can I be the best at? So I always try and be the best at recovery. I try and be the best in the team meeting, in the meeting room. Like make sure I know the game plan inside out, and I can be essentially a coach out there. And recovery. So I'm always trying to, experiment with ways, how can I improve, be it meditation, beach, cryotherapy, magnesium float tanks, so you name it, I'll try it and see if it improves me. So, yeah, really, just what are you laughing at?
Oh, just you having that addiction of float tanks. Are you still doing that for a long time now?
Yeah, mate, got to float. Float's the key. Yeah. And then like sleep's obviously a big one. So if I know I'm sleeping well, recovering well in there, and then I think relationships are key as well. Like I like to think sometimes of my life in different, I guess, levels or buckets as such out of 10, and football's always a 10 out of 10. I need to make sure that's always at a premium. And my great mates back home, like at different times they're a 10, but they can dip down to like a 6 out of 10 at times. When they get too low, then I need to make sure I put some time and effort and energy into that. And when I feel like I'm really balanced there, always sort of just balancing those things, then I feel really prepared to attack on field, off field, everything. So like my fiance needs to be depends what you ask, 9, 8, 10 out of 10, depending where football's at. And then in the off season, football can dip down to like an 8 while I'm overseas and things like that. But just really viewing things in those sort of parameters really helps me feel balanced and moving forward. And then like off field, if I feel like I'm not learning something, that really rattles me a little bit, so I need to make sure I put some time and effort, energy into that as well, and just keeping that holistic I guess life buckets in order. So family, friends, off field, on field, and just really just seeing where they're at, and just diving in that, and having the communication with those people there. But I feel my best when I've got really strong relationships, and moving forward, I guess, off field, and then feeling really prepared for on field. It's
a great segue, mate, because I think a lot of people ask me, what's Matty De Boer like? What's he like as a bloke? They see this guy, that the public would see as a tagger. As you said earlier, I think you referred to it as a villain. And I say to myself, the last thing you need to worry about, for me personally, if you think Matt De Boer is a footballer, and I'm actually saying this as a compliment to yourself, that's just like 10% of who he is. I admire the way you go about your footy, but I think that the biggest asset to yourself is the way you go about life and your business and everything else off the field, because it's honestly second to none. And I'm not just saying this, but I know that when I rocked up to the Giants, and I think I probably would say I was definitely lost. I had no fucking idea what I was doing at that stage, but I sort of had a lot of chats with you and the way you were engaged off field and passionate about your study and your purpose outside of the game and building a career. That really then motivated me to go like, fuck, I want this as well. Like, I need something that I can put all my energy into. Who is Matt De Boer off the field, I suppose? I've summed it up a little bit there, and I think people from the first half of our chat will understand this, but how engaged are you off field? Why are you so engaged? Is it something that you're extremely passionate in, or was it something that you were like, fuck, I've signed 6 one-year deals, I've got to be ready for what's next?
Yeah, I was the king of the 1 year deal. So there's always that uncertainty. I guess even dating back, like as parents do, I was really passionate about my sport, but they said, both being school teachers as well, they were like, you're studying and you better get good grades type thing. So I study and that has always just been a big part of my I guess the time of my week. So started university and finished that in 2016 and then it was like, okay, what's next? And I did the Australian Institute of Company Directors course off field as well, which is really cool. Upskilling in sort of governance, strategy, risk, legal, etc. To be on boards, to report to boards, etc. I sort of see the leadership group as a mini board as well, in a sense. So when people take sporting analogies to business, I take business ones to sport as well because there's lessons there. So always big on that. And then did a online course at Harvard in disruptive strategy, which was really cool. I had this ambition to study abroad when I was a bit younger, and then kept getting 1-year deals. So footy kept continuing, so I wasn't able to get over there and do that. But online these days, it's pretty pretty awesome with what you can achieve. So did that, and then was sort of thinking, what's next now? What do I do with my time? I did some work experience on my day off. AFL players get 1 day off, so I was sort of doing some funds management there with a global disruption sort of technology fund, and just have always loved sort of startups and venture capital, and we can dive into it. But essentially that evolved into what's now where I spend most of my time off field in Athletic Ventures, which is essentially a syndicate of past and present elite athletes that invest in startups and look to really add value through that process.
How does this come about, mate? How do you think, okay, I'm going to start a venture capital group with ex-players? Like, it's honestly one of the best ideas ever, but how you even go about starting that? What was the initial conversations? How did it even come about?
Yeah, I guess I've always loved sort of startups and venture capital. It's usually about growth maximization, and I actually quite liken it to elite athletes in the sense that for startups, the journey is not linear. It's not up and to the right like it's as athletes do. You have setbacks, you have failures, you have injuries, you lose games. But what helps you win is purpose, is culture, is leadership, is a great team. So that really alignment with startups is really consistent. So I've just loved listening to podcasts as well on that. I usually oscillate between Dylan Friends and something else. So we've done that. And then I actually listened to a podcast with a guy called Nick Crocker from Blackbird, who's a general partner there. And I remember listening to his story. I was like, this guy is a weapon, just everything that he's achieved. And I'm just going to reach out to him. So I just slid into his DMs, mate, on LinkedIn and said, hey, Nick, listen to your podcast. Would love to catch up. And, lucky enough, he responded. So caught up with Nick and essentially became great mates with him. He's like a mentor, but also a great friend as well. And we're able to share stories on, high performance and understanding what he does in the venture capital game. And then, met other great people, Justin Littman from Equity Venture Partners, Ed Cowan, ex-cricketer, works at TDM Growth Partners. So just some guys in the industry, because I was quite passionate about it, just trying to learn from these great operators. And there was an opportunity to, with a company at the time called Eucalyptus. At the time, they're called Eucalyptus, and they were raising it at Series A. And I'd met Tim Doyle, he's ex-Koala. And I said to Nick, who was managing the raise from Blackbird's end, I said, I'd love to invest in Tim and Eucalyptus. And he sort of said, what are you thinking? And I said a small amount. And he goes, yeah, probably not enough to merit a spot in the cap table. I was like, fair enough. And then we had this sort of idea to, well, what happens if we syndicate in with a bunch of, like-minded athletes, as I'd call them, student athletes like, your Toby Greens of the world that really understand the asset class, and we can dive into this, but really enjoy, technology growth companies. So, yeah, essentially we syndicated in together between about 15 of us from sort of multiple codes. And then, flash forward a year, we've done sort of 7 investments across sort of 60 plus athletes from all sorts of codes. And the portfolio's performing pretty strongly. And then, what I'm quite passionate about obviously is education and that continual growth. So we're able to organise some masterclasses where, people give a masterclass on a certain topic, the athletes zoom in, we listen for about 45 minutes and get to ask questions as well. So quite profound, the access that you can get from people that are willing to sort of help and give up their time, and really grateful for that. So I guess Athletic Ventures is sort of about access into great deal opportunities and education that goes with it.
It's unbelievable, mate. I'm actually a part of this. I haven't had any cash to actually invest yet, but I love just learning from everyone on it. I'm sure everyone knows what a venture capitalist done. I probably should have prefaced this at the start. In layman's terms as well, is venture capital basically just getting a group together, raising enough funds to then invest in a business?
Yeah, so venture capital is sort of at the pointy end of high risk, high return. So this is not financial advice and all things considered with that. But it's essentially investing in companies that are high growth at early stage where they're not quite profitable. So they need to raise funds to help grow. And then in return, you get a slice of their company as well. So, there's venture capital funds, and then there's syndicates, and there's angel investors, which might be high net worth individuals who can just invest by themselves. But through the syndicate, through being a group of athletes, we're able to learn and get access to some of the hot opportunities around Australia.
What's the goals of this, mate? It's unbelievable. Like, is it just to keep investing, keep building the portfolio, adding athletes with similar interests in? Is there any companies that you're looking to sort of invest in at the moment that you can talk about?
Yeah, it's just to do a really good job, to be honest, with our underlying portfolio at the moment, always meeting new companies here and there that are looking to raise funds, so meeting them. But we've got a great portfolio of 7 companies at the moment, and some of them are growing really quickly. Eucalyptus has sort of grown 300% year on year, and just really trying to use the athletes' networks and profiles to add value to these companies, because they're often mission driven as well, and trying to do a great thing in society and change the way consumers operate. So trying to help them in any way that we can and really grow that, and continue to meet other companies that might fit our ethos of investing as well.
It's huge. It's half of this is going straight over my head because a lot of them, they're very big words, but I'm sure it's making sense to a lot of people. It's honestly tremendous what you've been able to do, mate. Like, you're a full-time footballer that started a venture capital firm with athletes around the world that's investing in startup companies. With the help of a mutual friend that you've obviously introduced me to, Nick Crocker, who's an absolute superstar of the game, which probably brings me to my next point, and something that I feel like you've been a massive teacher in this, not just in footy, but in for me personally, is networking and the importance of networking. When I spoke to Crocs about getting on the show today, he actually sent me the message that you sent him back in 2018. And it was word for word the exact thing. I'll read it out to you now because this just shows, cold messaging someone like this to show your involvement in what they want to do. It says, "Hi, my name is Matty De Boer. I play AFL football for the Dabor Giants." So you drop that straight away. Nice.
Yeah, have to.
I've also graduated from university and now looking to expand on my horizons. I've been involved in tech startup, which I can expand upon at night at the right time. But this email is definitely not a pitch, but more a space that I found an appetite for. I live in Sydney and I noticed some of the Blackbird team reside there. At a time convenient to you, I'd love the ability to chat and pick your brain more personally in all things VC, which is venture capital, and the future, and any specific advice you may have for an ambitious 28-year-old. I understand you have a busy schedule, but I look forward to chatting soon. Kind regards, Matty De Boer.
There's a saying that says, if you're not embarrassed by your previous self, you haven't grown enough. So I'm embarrassed by that, but it would be a lot different these days. But yeah, sorry, you go.
How important is it though to reach out to people? I suppose it's something that's so uncomfortable, as you said. If I look back now at half my episodes, I'm still embarrassed at the one I did last week, let alone 2 years ago. How hard is it to put yourself out there and continue to put yourself out there and to meet people like this? You've just literally cold message one of the biggest up and coming venture capital superstars in the game, really, to catch up and hear you out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely uncomfortable and it's awkward, and you read all these things about, do something every day that scares you and all of that. But yeah, I keep coming back to it. But it's just like part of my purpose is to, try and be great at everything I do and make my family proud and, provide for my family. So it's like becomes a really easy decision. It's like, is this guy going to help me get to where I want to go? And, within that, like, I don't like the term networking. I feel like it's, got some weird connotations, but for me, it's more like building relationships with key people that are in the area of your interest. So, with Nick as an example, like I reached out to him because I was just fascinated by his story, where I didn't know where that was going to go, to be honest, at the time. But, for anyone listening, if there's an area that you want to improve upon, like get a mentor that can help you get there. They've got these pattern recognition, they've got the experience, they've got the strategies to help you, I guess, avoid a lot of the pitfalls along the way. So, and then within that, I reached out to Nick. I just tried to add any value to him that I could. So for me, that was around like lessons from elite sport and things like that, and just form a genuine relationship. As I mentioned, we're more friends now than mentors, but I still ask him 100 dumb questions just to make sure I get it right. And The same as with Ed Cowan and Justin Lippman, who I've touched on. So like, essentially great mates now, but are able to sort of assist me in my next venture as it was. But want to be clear, like football is my absolute priority, and it's a great business that I can essentially fundamentally we're just backing these weapon founders to grow and generate further revenue in their businesses. So it's I don't need to be there, I don't need to do anything as such, add value here and there. And then if I miss meeting companies as well, then that we can't invest in everything, so we'll miss some. But yeah, whilst football is my absolute priority, it's a great thing to have on the side.
While football is your absolute priority, as you said, it's something that you've always got to keep one eye out on is the future. At the game at the moment, you were sitting on the AFLPA board not long ago. You're obviously, looking, always having one eye on the future. You're a delegate, sorry.
Right.
One eye on the future, as you've always said. How do you think most AFL players are sort of transitioning at the moment? Do you think it's something that we need to be worried about? And not even just AFL players in general, just athletes. Is it something that we put enough focus on?
Yeah, I've talked about Ed Cowan. He's got a great analogy. He said in sport, you're like always climbing this mountain, and you're doing everything you can to get to the top of it. And then obviously when that ends, you don't just get to paraglide across to the next mountain at the top. You got to go back to the bottom. So I think in my own situation, like it's still daunting. It's always daunting. There's no better workplace than playing elite sport with your mates, and you got great purpose and everything that goes with it. But I guess what you can do is you can always work on tools, to use the analogy still of climbing mountains. You can always work on your tools so that when you start, going up again, you're ready to go. And the other thing is having a great climbing party as well. So for me, it's, surrounding yourself with people, better than yourself or smarter than yourself in different areas that you can continually, work with and learn from, so that when you do need to transition, you can, I guess get up the mountain a little bit quicker. But yeah, it's definitely an area of concern for lots of players, because they love what they do, and the thought of the next one, might not be in their passion, but you obviously need to, provide for your family in any way you can. So it's an area that the AFLPA is always aware of, and clubs are always aware of. At the Giants, we've got Dylan Addison, who's just a phenomenal player development manager, and always tipping the guys into certain courses that they can be doing. So I think whilst football is your absolute priority, and you need to make sure recovery is a priority as well, but there is, like I've touched on, you've got more energy and effort than you think, where you can be chipping away and keep a really balanced lifestyle there in regards to might be a uni degree, it might be a short course. You can learn pretty much anything on the internet these days. Develop your podcast, which you're able to transition into. So there's things that you can do, subtly chipping away at, working on those tools and those skills that you can translate into your next career.
Speaking of your next career, you're always on to the next big thing. You're the man that is just continually hustling on this. You're in my ear about NFTs at the moment. Now, non-fungible tokens, I do know a little bit about this. Can you just give us a little bit of a shout out on what these are? Because you're the only person who could probably explain it to me in layman's terms.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll give it a go. I probably won't do it justice, but yeah, I guess, a fungible token essentially means it can be broken down. So if I give you $100, that can be broken down into, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, whatever it is. So if something's non-fungible, it can't be broken down. There's one of it. So there's been some hysteria recently with NBA Top Shot. They're minting these iconic moments, but also cards. So essentially it's a digital token that represents something. It could be art, could be an iconic moment, could be something, and then you own that. So, Jack Dorsey's first tweet was minted recently, so someone owns his first tweet, and people think it's potentially silly because I could just print that off and say I've got it. You could do that with the Mona Lisa as well, but there's only one person that truly owns the Mona Lisa. Or other famous artwork, that might be a poor example. But so I was thinking about Dill Buckley. You've got this great growing community and those sort of things, and if you minted call it a producer pass. We'll call it that. And this is stuff I like talking about, mate. We'll grow the media empire for you. But if you minted a producer pass and you said there's only going to be one of these, and therefore it's scarce, and that therefore if it's something scarce, it's got value to someone. How much value? I'm not sure. It depends how hell-bent your fans and followers are. But maybe with that producer's pass. Yeah, so the lacrosse league are doing a great thing at the moment where they have 8 owners' passes, and within that, if you own one of them, then you get access to a call with a coach, and you get access to tickets, and you get access to different things because you are the one owner of that pass. So Dylan Friends, I think, should be exploring this at some point, and we can take it off soon. But essentially, the part that confuses everyone at times is the blockchain and how that's administered. But just essentially think of it as a digital ownership of some sort of asset.
That's incredible. That I do definitely understand it now, and I don't think anyone could explain that as good as you. Watch this space. Producer pass. That does sound very cool. I'm not sure if anyone would really want it, but we'll definitely look into that. We'll definitely look into that, mate. I've got one more story that I think will really sums you up as a person. It's probably not what you think it's going to be, but there was one time when we were up in Sydney and something happened to you on the weekend in your personal time. And it really just made me realise, do not fuck with Matty De Boer on, off the field, in business, in life, in footy, in just anything at all. And it was a young man who, did he steal your wallet or did he find your wallet?
This story.
No, he stole your bike.
Bike and wallet.
Bike and wallet. Please tell me this story because it's honestly one of my all-time favourites.
This is Josh Kelly's favourite story, so I assumed it would come up at some point. But yeah, essentially I was moving, it was the first few months of Sydney. I was moving into my new rental. Tendai Mzungu was helping me. We're putting our furniture in, carrying it from the car inside, and maybe being a little bit sheltered. But I forgot to lock my car, and Tendai and I played a game of Madden or something, and then my phone rings, and all of a sudden it's the bank saying there's some suspicious activity on your card. We're going to cancel it. I thought, oh yeah, do that. And I've just jumped online and seen the transactions of what's been happening, and someone's essentially got my card and tap and going up the street, buying certain things, and it finished at this pub. And I was like, righto, jumped in my car and I just sped down there, got out, got into the pub, and then no one was there. I spoke to the owner and he was like, oh, we thought that was strange. When their card was declined, these guys just scattered. I was like, oh, mate, they've stolen my credit card. And I don't know why, but I just said, can I look at the CCTV footage? I'm just like curious. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. So we've gone down the stairs into the dungeon to see the CCTV footage. He's rewound it, and it's about 4 guys there having beers on me. And then so I got my phone out. Once again, don't know why, I just felt compelled to, and started taking photos of it. I was like, all right, it's one of these 4 guys. And then I just hopped back in my car. I was like, I'm just going to drive around and see if I can see him in the streets. I don't know what I would have done, but driving around looking for him. Couldn't find him. So called the cops, reported it, did all the right things. And then I realised that within my wallet there was a travel card, and I had about $100 left on it. So I didn't cancel that one because every time he'd use it, it'd notify me of where he was. So he keeps using this card. I was out at a date night with my fiance at a Bondi, and then he's used it somewhere in a west. So I was like, right, we're going. I've ruined date night. We're hopping in the car, sped off to try and find this guy. Essentially called the cops on the way, doing all the right things, and then he'd left by the time I got there. Once again, I don't know what exactly it looks like. I've got some sketchy photos of this CCTV footage. Anyway, so I was trying to chase him around Sydney for a couple of weeks there, and unfortunately, I tore my hamstring in the second week, and I was pretty disappointed about that. But I was due to go out for breakfast with the Mzungus on the Sunday, and then so I was just waiting out the front, waiting for my fiance, and I see this guy walk past, and I was like, "That's fucking him." And I've been studying this photo like Liam Neeson from Liam Neeson from Taken, and I was like, "That is him." And I sort of. And by that time, he's sort of down the street a little bit, and I've realised I've torn my hammy. He's like, what am I going to do? So I've jumped in the car, sort of sped up to him, got out of the car, and I was sort of hobbling along to him, and I sort of didn't know what to say. I was like, hey, mate. And I was like, what do I say? And he's turned around him, and I said, have you got any ID? And then he's just looked at me and gone to run. So I was like, nah, I've just launched at him. I jumped at him. I've tackled him to the ground. I'm supposed to be this good tackler, but I ripped his shirt off his body, and his hat fell off as well. And he got up and he went to scamper away, and I went to chase him and felt my hammy. I was like, oh, gee, I can't do that. I can tell this story now. It's years ago. So he got away, which is disappointing, but then picked up the hat, dropped it off to the police. They ran forensics on it. He'd been arrested previously, so they had all his DNA. So they went and picked him up, and 18 months jail. So don't steal from me, Dill. I'll get you.
This bloke has just robbed you of a bike and a wallet and 4 beers, I think it was, and now he's doing 18 months.
Yeah, no,
do not fuck with Matty De Boer.
Exactly, mate.
Life lesson. That absolutely sums it up. I love it. You're an absolute superstar. I honestly cannot thank you enough for your time, mate, and just personally as well, the influence you've had on me and what you're doing, not just on the field but off the field, and for all your teammates and friends. You're an incredible character. There's not one person who has a bad word to say about you. Highly admire what you're doing. So excited to see what is next for you. I know you've got a long time left in footy and hopefully some success around the corner, but I just cannot wait to see what you're doing off the field when you finish, mate, 'cause there's going to be big things. And just on that, what is next for Matt De Boer to finish up?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, mate. Like I said, footy's the absolute priority, and I've absolutely devastated that I've lost 2 grand finals. Like, just don't get me wrong, that doesn't sit well with me, and still aiming to rectify that, and really got a great crew at the Giants to do so. So yeah, working as hard as I can on that, and then just chipping away. But yeah, I love the venture capital and startup scene, and hopefully something in that, and hopefully can help the Dylan Friends podcast in any way possible. So it's been a pleasure to be here, mate. Hopefully the listeners got something out of it, and obviously just thinking of everyone down in Melbourne in particular. So just challenge everyone to reach out and touch base with someone they know there, and just make sure they're doing all right. And yeah, equally with me, happy for anyone to reach out to me. Usually my Instagram messages still I usually hate from I've either ruined someone's dream team or their multi-bet. But aside from that, I'm happy to chat to anyone.
Mate, you're an absolute star, honestly. I cannot thank you enough for today, and I'm sure a lot of people would have got a lot out of that. And best of luck for the rest of the year. Looking forward to catching up soon for a couple of cold beers, my friend.
Yeah, it's cordial. Sound good, deal.
Guys, something massive we've been working on for a long time here at Dylan Friends. It's the random act of kindness giveaway. It's like nothing we've done before. It's wholesome, it's special, it's about friendship and giving back to someone in need, because it's giving you the opportunity to nominate your mate to win 5k cash. 5k cash. And it's all thanks to our good friends at Coinspot, Australia's most trusted Bitcoin and cryptocurrency trading platform. It's going to be massive. The best part is, I'm going to jump on a plane, Australia-wide, wherever you are, to hand deliver the 5k cash. We're going to hang out. It's going to be sick. It's going to be awesome. I'm actually genuinely so excited for this. So how do you enter? You got to jump on Instagram, be following Dylan Friends and Coinspot on Instagram, then jump on www.dylanfriends.com/giveaway and tell me why your mate deserves to win 5k cash. It's going to be huge. There's going to be consolation prizes. Let's go. Thank you, Coinspot. Thank you, Frank.